Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to Marty's Illegal Stick, a hockey podcast brought to you by the SportsHistoryNetwork.com. I'm your host, Scott Kindle, and we have got another fun-filled show ready to go and rock and roll for you today. I brought back an old friend of mine that we're going to introduce him in just a second. He's actually one of the guys that got me into this whole crazy podcasting world. Before I bring him in, though, I'm going to bring in our always co-host. He is the man, the myth, the legend. He looks like he's in his basement right now. So I hope everything's okay down there. He's the one. He's the only. He's Ed Stefaniak. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, I'm hiding from ice right now since I'm Hispanic, and it's pretty intimidating down here.
Well,
I found 2 spiders.
Well, I tell you, you were showing me the rest of the basement pretty earlier, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's a lot of work, but pretty soon I'll have a home gym so I can stop paying for Planet Fitness that I don't go to.
Yes, work out when you like. That's just
yes,
exactly what you need.
I want to add my schedule, and that schedule is non-existent.
That's right. There you go. All right, I'm going to bring in our other co-host for today. So, little history lesson here for you. About 4 years or so ago, I was invited to do a guest spot on a hockey podcast called All Pucked Up, which I always thought was one of the greatest names for a show ever. And, that show eventually ended, and then we started getting into this Marty's Illegal Stick, and then eventually 315 Hockey Live, and now we got both going on. But one of the guys that was the founder of All Pucked Up, I got him with us today. Him and I have had some legendary hockey discussions, and we hope to have one or two for you again today. He is Mr. Chris Mazzotti. Chris, it's great to see you again.
Hey, it's good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I did actually come up with that name for All Pucked Up. I remember discussing it with our other co-host, Rich Masucci, and he was like, what if we said something? I'm like, well, if you're just going to use puck like that, may as well just say All Pucked Up. We're doing it in a bar. I was like, all right. And the first few episodes were very interesting because I was trying to get very drunk during the episodes. If you ever went back and listened to them, if they're available, I don't even know. But you hear me do things like say, the San Jose Sharks, I can't even, talk right. I did 6 shots of tequila during the break, and things like that. So
I think we should do that. I think we should.
Sported my Seattle jersey today for you. Figuring not a lot of people in CNY probably have one of these, so
I couldn't believe it when I brought
you got plenty of Ranger jerseys to come on the show, but not a Kraken jersey, which I love this logo.
Die-hard Ranger fan. I couldn't believe you were wearing a Seattle jersey. I'm like,
it's because they're not a threat.
You know who number 7 is?
It's Eberle.
It's a Jordan Eberle jersey.
Wow. See, that's what's weird. You're such a Rangers fan. You get a Jordan Eberle jersey.
There's a few players that have played for the Islanders that I always thought should have been Rangers, and he's definitely one of them. I would have also had Ryan Strome on that list right up until we got rid of him last year because he couldn't hit an empty net. It's kind of a key for guys on your team. Hit an empty net.
In his defense, Scott can't hit an empty net either.
Yeah, I'm not in the NHL.
Yeah, exactly. He's not making $5 million a year.
Yeah. We're in the B League. We play for Pride. That's worth more.
Yeah. I play for Pride and a free beer afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, fellas, there's all kinds of NHL action going on right now. And what do we got? Maybe 3 weeks left of the season? Teams are getting down.
Islanders are down to 10 games.
Yeah, down to the nitty-gritty here. 10 to 12 games left for everybody. And the playoff races are getting tight. Last week, we started off with the Eastern Conference, and we didn't really get around to the Western Conference. So what I want to do, I want to start with the Western Conference. We'll go through that. And then with Ed being such a big Bruins fan, Chris being such a big Rangers fan, I'm sure we got some interesting discussion coming up there.
I mean, there's not much interesting discussion. We won the season series.
Well, that means everything.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Give them the cup then, I guess.
Yeah, it means your opinions are invalidated.
Yes, well, we'll find out about that. But first, let's take a quick look at the Western Conference, boys. So, actually, that playoff scenarios are, I don't know, it looks like pretty much everybody's going to be set in stone here. Vegas is actually leading the entire conference with 92 points. The LA Kings have tied them 92 as well. And then the Edmonton Oilers are in third place in the Pacific Division with 88 points. Looking over at the Central, The Dallas Stars are at 89 points. The Colorado Avalanche are at 88 points, and so are the Minnesota Wild. They're in third place with 88. The wild cards are currently Seattle with 83. Winnipeg with 81 has the second wild card spot. Trailing behind them is the Calgary Flames. They have 77 points, so they're 4 points out of a playoff spot. Nashville's 5 points out with 76. So let's just break this down real quick. If the playoffs were to start today, what that means is it's going to be Vegas against Winnipeg. It'll be the Dallas Stars against the Seattle Kraken. And then, of course, we have the rematch of the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche versus the Minnesota Wild. Now, if we were to start today, which one of those series do you guys find the most intriguing?
Colorado, Minnesota.
That's going to be interesting.
That would be interesting. To me, reigning Cup champs, that always ends points there for interesting. But it's also all the injuries Colorado has sustained with, Landeskog McCarr being injured throughout the season. It's McKinnon not being 100%. I want to see if they can get over that hump of being injured and playing in playoffs. And Minnesota just can't get it done. Is this the year that they maybe get out of the first round?
Right. I mean, they got the Flower.
And Flower's 7-0 in his last 7. And I think with a shutout and a 2.45 goals against average, he's playing out of his mind. He's dragging that team to the playoffs by himself.
Well, don't forget about Gustafsson in that too. He's been pretty good himself.
He's been pretty good himself. I think that could be an interesting series. 7 games it would easily go down to.
Yeah, see him try to fight the other night.
Oh God, these refs need to let him go.
Did you hear the mic ups?
Oh yeah, of course. I heard the mic ups.
I got to get my bucket. I hate my hair like this. You're just about to fight somebody. You're worried about your hair.
Why not, right?
Bennington's a menace to society, and the fact that he's now the most hated player in the NHL really makes me happy.
Yeah, I wonder why.
I like a Bruins fan saying he's the most hated player in the NHL. Like Marchand doesn't exist.
No, Marchand took second. Marchand's in second right now. Bennington has been on a tear. When's the last time Marchand's really done anything questionable versus the last time Bennington's done anything questionable?
Yeah, but you know what, though? Mazzotti, I'm sure, will agree with me. I mean, Bennington can't lick anybody, so he's got his goalie mask on. So
he takes it off every chance he gets. He takes it off every chance he gets. He's going to lick somebody.
That's a 3-game suspension now.
It is.
Do it. SK Andre Miller.
Damn COVID,
any saliva involved, you're out of there.
How come people always talk about Marchand licking somebody and not what's his name from Buffalo? Roy. He's a coach for St. Louis now.
Well, because nobody's ever heard of him.
Otter, Steve Ott.
I was going to say Roy. What are you talking about?
I was thinking of Derek Roy for some reason. No, Steve Ott.
Unlike Marchand, Steve Ott actually fought people.
And unlike Steve Ott, Marchand scores goals. So
he spit at him, then he fought him. But you're right. That would be an intriguing series. And I'll tell you something. A couple weeks ago, I was actually starting to bang the Colorado drum hard because I figured they're the defending champs. This has got to turn around, right? There's just too much talent. But the more I watch this team now, the more I realize just how much they're missing Nazem Kadri.
Yeah,
that second line's a mess. And granted, like you said, Landeskog's out and he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. They've had all kinds of injuries. But at what point do you not start to say, ooh, this is not the same team that ran to the Stanley Cup last year?
Realistically, I started saying that when Landeskog got hurt. They were on the outside looking in at that point. The fact that they're in a playoff spot right now is really good. Mm-hmm. But they're not the same team. They're far from the same team. Nazem Kadri was an intangible that is valued on every team, and I understand he had a high price point for the Avalanche, but you needed to get another grinder in there. You need to get somebody in there who can mix it up, and Colorado realistically doesn't have anyone who can fulfill that position.
Right. I mean, that's very true. And you know what, too? You know what helped Colorado get into that play? And they're still ultra talented. Let's not kid anybody here, right?
Yeah.
But the Central Division is no longer the complete juggernaut that it once was. It used to be you had a hard time getting into 5th place in that division. Now you clearly have your top 3. I'm looking at the stats right now. When we just went over them. Dallas, Colorado, Minnesota. They're all right there. 89, 88, 88. But then you go to Winnipeg, who's at 81, and they've already got 71 games played. And Nashville is barely hanging on to even a remote chance at the playoffs, where it used to be right up until last year. Listen, all five top five spots out of the Central Division were going to the playoffs. The Pacific wasn't putting anybody in the wild card, and now that's all change. So that has actually helped Colorado. Again, uber talented, but they're starting to run out of a little bit of runway here, and I'm not all of a sudden I'm not so confident in them getting out of that Western Conference.
And you know, you go right ahead, man.
Yeah. Well, last year, they did a goalie change at the end of the season, right? So now they have Georgiev instead of Kemper.
Yeah.
And I personally think that they're about the same. Like, I feel like Georgiev might have more talent, but Kemper's just so big that, half of what he stops is just dumb luck. So it makes me nervous for, like what you said, they get rid of that type of grinder, type of, pest that Kadri can be. And then all of a sudden, like, okay, well, you didn't really improve on the back end. If guys are getting through the middle easier, like, and you've seen Colorado's lost some games this year with very high scores against. And It's like, when you get into the playoffs, you don't want to be letting games like that up. And Georgiev, he's not the most, like, bounce back guy. Like, if he starts letting in, if he loses a game 6-2 or something, like, it's not easy for him to always bounce back. Granted, he's had the best examples around him his whole career. So could be absolutely wrong. He could, like, have learned how to bounce back from that stuff, but I just don't know if it's realistic that Colorado just, walks through the Central, playoffs this year. And Minnesota, you can't sleep on them. They are very talented. So it will be a good one.
That's Central. Go ahead, Scott.
Remember when everybody left Minnesota for dead when they had to do the buyouts on Parise and Suter?
I definitely did.
Oh, they're done. That's it. Their cap is ruined. Forget about it. This team is over.
Yeah.
Now look at them.
Give Billy Guerin some credit, man.
Billy Guerin and their coach.
Yeah.
And their coach, Emerson. I mean, it's just been incredible what they've been able to do. It helps having Kirill Kaprizov on your team.
Yeah, Kirill Kaprizov helps.
Mazzotti, give me a matchup that you think is pretty intriguing.
In the West, I got to say that I'm looking forward to LA Edmonton.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of LA games this year. As you know, I've texted you a few times, like, how do you stay up this late to watch hockey? But with the ESPN account and whatever, you get all the out-of-market games. So I've been watching LA. Been watching Edmonton, too. I just watched them play San Jose the other night. And it's an interesting matchup to me on the basis of, like, LA reminds me of, like, those years where Ottawa was called the Pesky Sens. I feel like they're the Pesky Kings. Like, you never know what team you're going to get on a given night. They can lose 5-2, or they can beat you 8-1. Like, it's like everything Kempe shoots can go in, or nothing he shoots can go in. Like, and now that they got
the streak.
this Phoenix Copley coming in, right? Is he like they got him and they got what Corpusalo? And he's been doing good for them, right?
Yeah. It's funny. Ever since that trade where they brought in Gavrikov and Corpusalo, statistically, they've been the best team in the league, which is very interesting. And I'll tell you something, as a Kings fan, I listen, I'm very happy for what Phoenix Copley did all year. I mean, it's been absolutely incredible. Did I think it was going to last, though? Not really. I mean, I have to be honest about it. I mean, love the guy, but let's face it, he spent more time in the AHL than he has in the NHL. And you kind of wonder, like, that whole Cinderella thing, right? When's the carriage going to turn into the pumpkin?
Well, that's kind of my point exactly, because we saw another goalie do this a couple of years ago in Binnington. So, are we going to have another Binnington situation? And poor Edmonton, if that's what happens, because this is a much taller order, I think, you're going to have to go against McDavid and Draisaitl here in the very first round. I just feel like in Edmonton, their psyche, I feel like, is the shakiest. I feel it's shakier than Toronto. If they cannot dominate, I'm not just saying, like, come close to winning. They need to dominate LA in order to go anywhere. because if they don't, it's going to be such a confidence booster, like confidence deflation to them, because they really need to, like really, because you think about LA. I know you're a big fan, Scott. When the average person thinks about LA, who's their superstars?
Some still say Wayne Gretzky.
Kopitar.
Hey, I mean, I think Kopitar is a well-known guy.
Absolutely.
And Doughty. And then where do you go?
Well, here's the thing.
Velarde? I mean, Kempe, obviously, this year. But a lot of people don't know Kempe. Calder Cup winning Adrian Kempe, I should say.
That's right.
Can you throw Philip Deneau into that mix? Because he was that big free agent ticket they got after that cup run in Montreal.
Philip Deneau, yeah. I mean, he locked down that second spot or the second line center.
Yeah.
And forget about Kevin Fiala.
Fiala, I forgot about him actually.
Every time they show me a highlight of Fiala, I forget he's on LA.
Yeah,
every single
incredible this year. And the thing about Fiala is he spent most of his time on the third line. Now they brought him in to be one of Kopitar's wingers, but they decided to balance out the lines, so they moved Fiala down the lineup, and it's worked out wonderfully because now Quentin Byfield has actually stepped up and taken over the left wing spot on the first line. Now, if you recall, they drafted Byfield number 2 overall in the 2020 draft, and he's naturally a center, but because of the way the lineup shakes out right now, they're like, hey, let's get him some experience up on the wing. Playing with a guy like Kopitar and Kempe is not going to hurt him. Let's just put it that way. As far as any kind of development or anything like that goes. So what they are essentially doing, what they kind of remind me of is when they were doing the cup runs and they were able to roll 4 lines. Any line you put out there could do the job. And a system like that is going to irritate Edmonton because this is exactly what happened when they played last year. That series went 7 games, by the way. Nobody expected that series to go 7 games.
That was supposed to be a 4-game series.
Right? They were going to wipe them out, and that was going to be the end of it. But if you all of a sudden, because how did Edmonton win those last 2 games? I think Draisaitl and McDavid played like 3/4 of the game in Game 6 and Game 7. They never left the ice. So what that tells me is that Edmonton, honestly, didn't do anything to address their depth. They really didn't. And they didn't do anything to address their goaltending either. Now, I like Stuart Skinner. He's a nice story. That's great. But is this guy going to get Connor McDavid his cup?
Well, that's the thing. He's letting in 4 goals a game right now.
Exactly.
So how are you going to beat LA? That means you need to put 6 in on LA every game, or 5.
And that's not going to happen with the structure.
It's not going to happen. Not when Dirty locks it down and he's on there 30 minutes a night. Yeah. And, I give McDavid all the credit, but is he going to be blowing past Doughty? I don't know,
Well, and that's just it, because like I said, if you have a team with team structure like LA has, that's a problem because it's not going to be freewheeling wide open. LA is going to lock that neutral zone down, and they're going to slow the Oilers down at the point of attack, and that's what the Oilers depend on. Now, I'm not saying that it's obvious it's not going to be a blowout either way, right? If those 2 teams play in the series this year, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be fantastic hockey to watch. It's going to be a great series. It's just going to be a lot closer than people think.
Now, here's my question. If let's say it goes 7 games, LA comes out on top, when does McDavid start looking for a new home?
Well, he's in the middle of an 8-year contract right now, so
he can look for a new home all he wants. He can demand that trade and waive his no-trade clause, though.
Yeah, but
I don't think that's what Connor McDavid would do. Leon Draisaitl, however, that's another story.
Draisaitl, definitely.
Yeah.
Draisaitl has no – I don't see him having the lock into Edmonton like McDavid does. McDavid's, the new Gretzky in Edmonton. They will do whatever they can to keep him there. And I feel like that he doesn't want to be the guy to leave again. He doesn't want to do that. I mean, they're still crying over that Gretzky trade, So, and so I just think that McDavid wouldn't do that. Draisaitl, however, absolutely. Darnell Nurse, positively. Like those guys would run for the hills, I'm sure.
Well,
but
sure.
I don't know that happens from them losing a Game 7 to LA this year.
But it's been year after year.
Yeah, and it's the same problem year after year. That's the thing. It's the same damn problem year after year. No goaltending.
It is.
When do you address that?
Oh, they tried this year with Jack Campbell. And
Yeah, well, that again,
was
we're talking about the Cinderella syndrome, right? The
yeah,
carrot turning into the pumpkin.
yeah.
When's it gonna happen?
I know why people think that like this goalie's going to come here and he's going to be good here. Like I can understand that with other players on the ice because you're playing with line mates. But the goalie is typically on his own. Now, granted, defense makes a big difference. I'm sure Martin Brodeur will tell you that. But other than that, like you're on your own. It's a lot in your head. As we Fleury will tell you that, like from his psychological collapse years. But I think that Edmonton, Scott's dead on. They have not addressed that at all. Like, thought Mike Smith was going to take you somewhere last year. Like, are you crazy? Like, hey, come on. Like, and they could have went after Markstrom when he was going to Calgary, and they let that slide.
Yeah,
I think that was a big mistake. I think it was a big mistake because, even though Markstrom's getting handed to him most nights in Calgary right now, I think he's a very talented goalie. I think he has, if he can stay, healthy, that he can have a longevity as one of these goalies. Look at Jarl Locke got a shutout at 38 years old. He is, I think, he got a shutout the other night. He's on a 7-game win streak, or he's 7-0-1 in his last 8 games. Like, so I mean, you can be a goalie that isn't a starter that has longevity and whatever and can last out, but not if you think you're going to be Mike Smith and you're starting all the time. Whereas, like, what if Markstrom had come in there now? Then you'd be looking at this tandem this year. Would have been Markstrom and Skinner. And you're like, that's not a bad tandem.
No, it's not.
That's a good tandem.
I'll tell you, who's actually loving this right now? Semyon Varlamov from the Islanders, because he's going UFA this offseason. And right now, he's looking at teams like Edmonton. He's looking at teams like Buffalo and saying to himself, I am getting paid because somebody wants a number one.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. So, I got a feeling that Semyon Varlamov is going to be the guy come free agent frenzy that is going to get completely overpaid. But that's another story for another time.
Oh yeah.
So
I could see him getting an 8x6.
You know what? I could see him getting $6 million a year. I don't know if somebody's going to give him that kind of term because I think he's 32, I believe, something like that. But I definitely see him getting in the 5 to 6 range for sure. For sure.
If I had to pick a Cinderella team out of the West, I would pick Seattle.
You know what? I would actually
clearly.
I was going to go to the Winnipeg Vegas series because I actually think that one's the one that's ripe for the upset. And it's not just because, Mazzotti, you know how much I just absolutely love the Golden Knights. It's not that at all. This is not the same Golden Knights team that we've been seeing for the – I look and I don't know how they have this many points. I really don't. It's kind of befuddling to me. But everybody's kind of sleeping on Winnipeg. And I know Winnipeg's been having horrible problems with consistency. But you look at the talent that's in that Winnipeg lineup, right? You still got Mark Scheifele there. You got Pierre-Luc Dubois. You got Kyle Connor. Josh Morrissey is having a lights-out season out of nowhere, right?
Norris contention.
Yeah. So, and don't forget, everybody is forgetting about this. Connor Hellebuck is 2 years removed from being a finalist for the Vezina. He's still there. That team gets hot at the right time. They're going to be tough to handle.
Not only that, Scott, but if you recall, when Vegas went to their cup run, they went through the Jets. I remember because the Knight cut a jet in the middle of the ice.
I couldn't believe
That's how I remember what the Knight killed before the game.
Yeah. Thus began my love affair with the Knights, right?
And granted, a lot of those Vegas guys have turned over, but not a lot of those Jets have.
No.
And I think stuff like that definitely carries over. Like, you got a whole squad of guys that lost to that team. They're going to remember that. It was a conference final, I believe.
Yeah, it was. And that was Winnipeg's year. Remember that was the year that Winnipeg was supposed to go to the Cup.
Yeah.
As I recall, they won the President's Trophy that year, didn't they?
I believe so.
I think they were really good.
And you got to figure a lot of those guys are starting to get, older. Maybe looking at this as Winnipeg's last hurrah kind of deal for all them being together. So I think if anything, that's going to be the one series that could really produce an upset. Now, Mazzotti, you mentioned Seattle. Here's my question: they're starting to flounder, and they're starting to flounder big time.
But what's floundering?
Do they have enough?
Their goaltending is floundering.
Right. Well,
they've been riding this goaltending tandem all year that like one guy gets hot, the other guy's not, and then they switch. And right now it's both not. Like, right. But they remind me of that Vegas team a lot. You know, they have a whole bunch of second line guys, and you know, I picked up McCann in fantasy like 3 times this year because he just can't stop scoring.
Right.
Like it's really crazy. And Matty Beniers, like people that might not know him yet, but they're going to.
Oh yeah.
Like, that kid's getting a Calder trophy this year, most likely. Like,
oh, for sure. I can't think of another rookie.
I can't even think of there's a kid on Arizona who's pretty good, but not in the same league. So I mean, I just think like, you know, Seattle's one of those teams. I feel like if they get a first series win, and right now, who are they playing?
They would be playing Dallas now, which
Dallas has been, you know, going in the wrong direction. Dallas should be up on all these teams by 10 points, you know, and they're not. Like, so, you know, Dallas wins 2, loses 1, wins 2, loses 1. It's like all year long.
Dallas going to win to cruise control. Because if you're right, they had that huge lead in the Central, remember? And then they just kind of went, okay, we got this. Yeah. And then put everything into cruise control, and they let Colorado and Minnesota right back in it.
Yeah. Well, on top of that, Sagan got hurt. Ben's not getting any younger.
You got Jason Robertson.
Ben's doing very good for them. You know,
he is. Are these long seasons going to start taking a toll?
Yeah.
I think I can see Dallas making it to the Western Conference final, but realistically, any of these Western Conference teams, I don't see them making a push. I don't see them getting over the Eastern Conference hump.
Well, here, let me just close this Western Conference thing out by saying this. I think that the teams we just talked about that are in playoff spots will remain in playoff spots because I'll tell you, I watched that Calgary-LA game last night. Calgary looked terrible. I don't think – and they've got more games played than everybody else. You know, they're 4 points out of a playoff spot, and I just don't see them making the push. I really don't. Nashville, same thing. I mean, that's just a team that's
they're decimated.
Yep, they're done. They're done.
Their top 2 defensemen, their top 2 forwards are all out.
The league's passing them by. I mean, that's simple. It's as simple as that. The only change that I could see is maybe Seattle and Winnipeg flip-flop and play out or wild card spots. The 1-2.
I could see that
possibility. But other than that, I think you got your top 3 teams in each division locked in. And like I said, I think the only real question mark there is who's going to be the 1 and 2 between Seattle and Winnipeg. So,
and then if it becomes Vegas versus Seattle, I really like that.
Oh my God, could you imagine that? That would be so
great.
That would be cool.
Go Kraken. Because I'll tell you, Mazzotti, I don't hate the Kraken. I really don't. You know why? Because they did it right.
Beautiful logo.
They did it right though too. You know, they built through the draft. They didn't go out and buy every player out there like they were drunken sailors in port. You know. And they don't have this garish on ice show and all this. So, you know what? I'm okay with the crack.
And if you look at how Francis is managing that roster, he has managed it from the start with like, we are going to have depth. Whatever we do, we are going to have depth. And there's one thing that, you know, they are building a system there. And, you know, I don't think anybody expected them to make the playoffs, you know, the second year. But, hey, you know.
You never know, though.
You never know. Once you get in, and then if you get that past that first round, man, anything can happen. As Ed mentioned earlier, Montreal went to the Cup final a couple of years ago. Now they're in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, you know, like. So, you know, anything can happen. You win a round, you know.
Well, I can tell you this: Montreal is not going to the playoffs this year. That's for sure. But I'll tell you what, let's talk about that Eastern Conference. I know you guys are just chomping at the bit to talk about the Eastern Conference. So just like the other, the Western Conference, we'll go over this real quick. The Boston Bruins are running away with the Eastern Conference. First place in the Atlantic, first place in the entire conference. Actually, in the entire league, too. But the Atlantic shapes up as this. Boston, Toronto's in second place with 93 points. Tampa Bay is in third place with 90 points. The Metropolitan, Carolina leads with 98. New Jersey's right behind with 97, followed by the Rangers with 92. Your wild card playoff spots are the Islanders with 80, and now the Florida Panthers with 79. They have overtaken the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have 78 points. But boy, do they look like a team that's on their way down. Ottawa's still kind of hanging around in there with Washington and Buffalo. Ottawa has 73 points. Washington has 73 points, and Buffalo has 72. I think they're running out of runway as far as those teams go.
Buffalo definitely is. The last few games where they've been dropping and dropping, I just can't see them continuing. But it's a good start for this new team. So,
I'm glad that Buffalo at least got to sniff around a playoff spot because I think the fan base needed that in the worst way.
They do.
Really needed to happen, and they got a lot of promise. Right now, they just remind me of the Edmonton Oilers East. They can score a ton of goals, and they can't keep it out of the net. So it's the East Coast Oilers is basically what they can call themselves.
Next year is going to be a make-or-break year for the Sabres team because Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen's going to be up, and they just signed Devin Levi. So they realistically have a shot next year. They knew they weren't going to get it done with Craig Anderson.
No, not. But I'll tell you, when he played, he was really good. But I mean, you can only go.
He was
year-old goaltender. Now here's my question as far as Levi goes, though. Do you let him develop in the AHL for 1 year? Because as great as he was in college, the professional game is much different.
And goaltending's weird too.
Pressure to get into the playoffs because now everybody knows they got talent. So do you bring in a veteran goaltender for say like 2 years, just to let him develop? And don't forget about Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who I will always say has the greatest name in hockey. I love saying it. It's awesome. If I were to have another kid, I would probably name that kid Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. But
I like how the play-by-play guys, they don't even bother trying to say his name. He's just UPL.
Yeah.
they're like, no, we're not playing that game. Like, you want to hyphenate that name? You're UPL.
Good luck.
So with Devin Levi, I firmly think that they should at least give him a couple months as a backup. See how he does.
Yeah.
See if he's ready. If he's making saves, no problem leaving him as a backup. Put Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen as a starter. If he
him right now, as soon as the college season's over, I'll be like, all right, in, and you're
they have him up right now.
Play him.
Yeah, so that's what they're going to do. They're going to play him. But for next season, fresh start, doesn't have to worry about the past pain of college. Just have him as a backup, play every third game. And then if he's starting to sink, send him down to Rochester.
Okay.
I think that's a fair.
The wrong thing to do, Ed. And here's why. Here's why. He comes up. If he's going to be the future of the franchise and he's going to be a starter, he should be in Rochester. Look at your goalie for the Boston Bruins, who's going to most likely win the Vezina this year, Linus Ullmark. He spent time in Rochester. Watched him a bunch of games here at the Utica Odd versus the Comets, and I knew then, watching him play every night, like, this guy's stopping breakaway after penalty shot after power play, 5-on-3. He's going post to post, like, and granted, he's not winning all the games, but he was getting tons of experience, tons. And I just feel like when you bring up a kid who you expect to be your starter for the future, if you put him in too early, his confidence gets shaken. Now you're going to send him back to the AHL. That's a bad recipe. I just feel like it's shaky. And he probably needs more than a backup role for his own development. So I would say you send him to Rochester, but you make him the starter. He's starting in Rochester. You're the kid this year, kid. Let him go out there.
I can see that.
If he goes to Rochester, he's the starter. There's no if and ors because Rochester doesn't have the goaltending depth that they had last season. There's no.
But who would then fulfill that backup role? Because Craig Anderson's more than likely retiring at the end of the year.
I mean, you could get Louis Domingue. Like, get another guy. Like, there's lots of backup goalies available.
Yeah, I mean that would either that or keep Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen around.
Well, no, he's
Or,
going to be the starter next year. No,
Right.
no doubt about
Isn't
it.
Kincaid on Boston right now? He's a third.
No, they traded him to Colorado.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's
He's
out
third in college. I'd pick up Kincaid. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's what I would do as far as I would bring him in right now, let him play a few games for the rest of the season at the NHL level, give him a little taste, see how he does. But I'm a firm believer, especially with goaltenders, they need that time in the professional game to get used to it. It's a much faster pace, and even at the college level, much more physical. There's a lot more crashing the net. There's a lot more physicality going around the crease, so you got to get used to that. I mean, look at what all the time in Utica did for Akira Schmidt.
Yeah.
Look what it did for him. Look what it did for Jacob Markstrom. Look what it did for Thatcher Demko, who's finally starting to play like Thatcher Demko again, right? We saw all that in Utica. So imagine if they'd have thrown those guys right in the NHL, right off the deep end, right off the bat. It wouldn't have probably worked out so well. But, I mean, no doubt about it. Devins is the goalie of the future. There's no ifs, and, or buts about that.
are you saying bring him in now, Scott, at the end of this season?
I would, because
let him get a couple games in.
Get a couple games in.
I agree with that.
Just to get your feet wet. Say, okay, this is the NHL, kid. This
give you the show. Yep. Show him what he's going to be working towards. Yep. And then tell him next year you're in Rochester.
Yep. You're going to work on this in Rochester. And then maybe if he's doing that great in Rochester halfway through the season, come on up. If they think he's ready.
If he's if he's dominating the AHL, absolutely.
Yeah. Different.
But no doubt in my mind he will.
You
know, he'll be lighting the AHL world on
fire.
Sure,
Utica will have something to say about that.
I still think you guys are right, though. I think Buffalo does need to go out and get a veteran goaltender just on a year or two deal, just more or less to hold the fort down.
Varlamov, maybe, like you were mentioning.
Term. That's the thing. He's going to want term.
Yeah,
this is going to be his last crack at a big dollar contract. It wouldn't shock me one bit if he ends up in Edmonton. Not one bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I could see that.
But I'll tell you what, guys. I don't think that the Sabres are going to make the playoffs. Let's talk about teams that are going to make the playoffs.
I'll tell you though, as long as we're still on the bubble, if any of these teams are getting in, I think it's Ottawa.
Boy, you know
what? I agree.
You watch Ottawa play, man. They are playing hungry. All these other teams are struggling to win. Ottawa's like, no. You just tied it up with 8 minutes to go. No, we're scoring again. Like we didn't score. We scored one goal for 48 minutes, but you just tied it up, and now we're going to get another one. They're back to being the pesky Sens, I believe.
That's a team I feel so bad for, because could you imagine what would have happened if Cam Talbot could have stayed healthy? Seriously. I mean, they were playing with AHL goaltenders for most of the season. So, I mean, if he could have just stayed healthy for him, it could be the difference right now and them being a wild card spot, to be honest with you.
And
or they could have kept Matt Murray and they could be further out than they are.
Yeah, true. Very true. But you're right. I think Ottawa's going to be – I think Ottawa's a playoff team next year. No doubt about it. I think –
And Pittsburgh just went 115 minutes without scoring a goal.
I know. Could you imagine?
They went from the third period Thursday night to the third period Sunday night without scoring a goal. I mean,
you know what? I'll tell you what. The best thing that could happen to the Pittsburgh Penguins is they miss the playoffs this year. Seriously. No, think about it. Because
then they actually have to do something with their roster.
If they can get into a lottery pick. Even though I'll tell you, because I got a friend of mine who's a big Penguins fan, and he was moping on Facebook last night after that game. It was actually pretty funny, I got to say.
They went into the lottery, Scott, as one of the lowest rated odd teams.
Yeah, but
and they got number one.
I know.
Let me tell you something.
There would be
riots in Montreal.
But I'll tell you something, though. I went on their Cap Friendly page, and that team has messed themselves up so bad. They're into Crosby, Letang, and Malkin for at least the next 3 seasons. They still got Jeff Carter through the end of next season. There's just no wiggle room anywhere. And you can't, and that's the other thing. I can't understand why they gave Malkin and Letang the contracts they did this offseason. I get Letang's a very good player, and I get Malkin's a very good player. But when's the last time Letang played a full season? And Malkin is so up and down, you don't know what's going to happen with him. That was their opportunity right there to unload some contracts and start getting younger. And what they do, they not only doubled down on it, they tripled down on it. So,
and they let Evan Rodriguez walk to Colorado.
Way to go, Ron Hextall.
Yeah.
But anyways, I want to talk about those Boston Bruins for a second. So obviously they're going to be locked into the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. So they're going to get either probably the Islanders or the Panthers. Now, normally I would say, boy, that's tough luck there, Islanders or Panthers. But for some reason, something's telling me that series could be much better than we think it is. Because here's the thing that scares me about the Islanders. Ilya Sorokin is capable of stealing a series.
Yep. That's the first thing I thought of.
And the Islanders have depth. So they don't really have any superstars per se. Because I don't really consider Bo Horvat's having a great year. Matt Barzal's hurt, which really kind of takes the wind out of their sails. But they're one of those teams like LA that plays with a lot of structure. And when you got a goaltender like Ilya Sorokin, that can cause a big headache.
So I agree with the Ilya Sorokin part. I would wholeheartedly agree with Ilya Sorokin. The intangible for me, the big difference maker is Boston is geared up for playoffs with Orlov, Hathaway, and Bertuzzi. They want to be a thorn in everyone's side. They're going to be pissing people off, maybe taking some dumb penalties, but they're also going to be drawing some dumb penalties. Realistically, I see if they play the Islanders, it's going 6. If they play the Islanders, Boston wins that in 6. It's the Tampa-Toronto series that really makes a big difference to me.
That's interesting.
If they play the Panthers, I really don't think the Panthers have it. I don't see the Panthers taking a long run.
They're too inconsistent. But the only thing that scares me about the Panthers too is if Bobrovsky starts playing like Bobrovsky. Look what he did against Tampa 3 years ago, right? Against Columbus, when he was with Columbus. I mean,
when Bobrovsky plays like Bobrovsky, it lasts a whole season. It doesn't last a couple weeks.
Right. I listen, if it's Boston and Florida, I don't think Florida stands much. I think the Islanders stand a much better chance against the Bruins.
Yeah, I agree. The Islanders stand a much better chance. Ilya Sorokin is a difference maker. But when you have the most hated players in the league on one team,
here we go again.
It's true. It's true. They geared up for a playoff style push.
There's no doubt about it.
You get that grit. It's bound to it's bound to show itself at some point, and they're just waiting to use it.
Yeah.
Listen, Boston is 7-3-0 in their last 10. Now that sounds good for every other team in the league, but when they've been like 10-0 in their last 10 most of the season, and now that you see 3 there, and you're like, whoa, they're up to 11 losses, Boston.
11 losses. That's so many.
I just feel like to play this good this long is hard, and we've seen teams do it before. They win the President's Trophy and they go out in the first round. It's happened over and over again. Do I think that's going to happen to Boston this year? I do not think that's going to happen to Boston. The reason being is their goaltending. Are the Islanders the best matchup for them? If somebody wants to see a Boston go out, I'd say so. But that being said, Ilya Sorokin can't score goals.
Yeah.
He
tried.
And so then, I mean, that's an issue. Who's Anders Lee? Is Boston afraid of Anders Lee?
Probably not.
Josh Bailey,
Bo Horvat, realistically, the only one.
Yeah, and granted, Islanders, like Scott was saying, they're structurally sound. They will make Boston slow down. But like you were saying, Ed, those additions on the back end that Boston got, it's making them real ridiculous looking when you look at their roster right now. And the biggest issue I have with Boston not going all the way to the cup is how many guys are they going to lose? How many guys are going to get hurt? How long is Bertuzzi going to last? So that's what Boston to me is hinging on. They need to stay healthy. They need to stay engaged, and they'll be fine, especially getting out of that division. Because realistically, Tampa and Toronto ain't taking down Boston either. Not likely. Tampa probably better chance than Toronto. Of
Tampa
course,
and Toronto are going to kill each other too.
we'll see.
Tampa
Toronto
and
could
Toronto are
say,
going to want blood.
here's the thing, Ed. Toronto could say have like a 4-goal lead with 10 minutes left in Game 7 and not make it to the next round.
Yeah, but you know what the Leafs have going for them though? You know what they do have going for them? They're not playing Boston in the first round this year.
Okay.
Well, last year they played Tampa also in the first round.
Yeah, I know, but you know what happens every time that the Bruins and the Leafs hook up in the first round. You know what happens.
Yeah, I know what happens.
And we touched on this last week. Yeah, I mean, Boston's a juggernaut. There's no doubt about it. The only thing about Boston that I have to say is things have gone a little bit too right. You get past injuries with Marchand and McAvoy, who came back sooner than they thought. And now it's just been like this dream season, right? Like nothing's really gone wrong. There's been no major injuries to deal with. And
DeBrusque, really?
Yeah. I mean,
and the other thing too, Scott, is they're killing guys so bad, they're not really taking a lot of adversity. So like Boston's winning 8-2 and stuff. That's not a grinded out game for anybody. Like
no,
maybe the opposing goalie, but that's about it, right? So I just find what's going to happen when the playoffs happen, it gets tighter, hits come harder, the goals goes down. Boston's got to maintain. They have to maintain that level of we don't care. We're going to keep coming at you, whatever. But if they start losing guys, they lose Marchand, they lose Bergeron. That's the biggest loss they can take if they lost Bergeron, I think. Yeah. But then you keep going. It's like, well, then they got Pasternak, and they got Garnet Hathaway scoring goals, so you never know. They definitely did the best at the trade deadline, I think, as getting deep. They were like, you know what? They probably looked at the roster and went, we're an injury or two away from losing a series. Let's make sure that doesn't happen and get 5 more guys to back up our back end. So it's pretty much what they did.
Yeah, I agree. I think they went out in the deadline and got depth. That's what a lot of these contenders need to do.
Well, it's too late now.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll tell you what, let's flip this over to the Metropolitan Conference because, yes, we can all agree that Tampa Bay and Toronto are going to just kick the crap out of each other, and that's just going to be a war of attrition more than anything else. But speaking of wars of attrition, it looks like we are staring down the barrel of a New Jersey-New York Rangers playoff series, a rivalry renewed. Now, of course, Mazzotti, I want your thoughts on this. But
First of all, it's never renewed. It's always going. Okay.
I know, but it kind of went
Rangers, Devils, Islanders. It never stops.
But kind
of
they
can be at the back of the league, and those games will be bloodbaths. It does not matter. But
let me ask you this, because New Jersey is 5 points up on the Rangers. Okay.
Only 1 point behind Carolina.
Right. Which that could throw a monkey wrench.
And who plays Carolina tonight?
I'll tell you something right now. All of a sudden, Carolina's starting to look a little vulnerable.
You think?
When we talk about Boston playing those wild card teams, could you imagine Carolina against, say, the Islanders? That could be your upset in the making right there. To be honest with you. I'm telling you.
Svechnikov's done for the year. Yeah, that's a possibility. That's a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's not coming. Svechnikov's done.
No, he's done for the year.
Yeah.
ACL. You don't come back from that.
No.
You're not Joe Thornton.
No. There's no amount of screws that are going to get him back in a playoff game this year. No way.
Maybe a finals. Maybe finals.
Beard money run would be Mazzotti. I mean, that's just an impressive beard there.
If Carolina makes it to the finals, look for Svechnikov. Other than that, he ain't playing.
He ain't coming back. He ain't coming back for the finals. He's done.
I feel bad for Carolina. and I know you wanted to talk about Jersey and Rangers. This is what I feel is going to happen. New Jersey's going to end up taking first place. That's what's going to happen. New Jersey's going to steal first place. The Rangers might be right behind them, possibly, and Carolina's going to drop to third. That's what I'm anticipating will happen. The Rangers have to play Carolina twice this week, today and Thursday. That means by the end of Thursday, the Rangers could be just 2 points behind Carolina. So that's a big swing, right? Now that happens, and the Rangers keep going on this hot streak that they're on. The Rangers can take second. Carolina drops to third. Jersey ends up playing Florida, maybe. And, which I think would be a really good series. And then I just feel you know who I feel bad for? I feel bad for these teams on the bubble because I don't see Carolina going anywhere right now.
I'm telling you, they're vulnerable.
Listen, their goaltending doesn't scare me at all.
No.
Actually, the third guy does.
Off there, or
what's his name? Kochekov?
Yeah.
He's the only goalie there that scares me. Okay, Antti Ranta doesn't scare me. No. And Freddie Anderson needs a new hip. So, that's the basis of the facts. Now, Carolina's been built really good, but unlike Boston, they didn't get a lot deeper, and they already are hurt. And now that they lost Svechnikov, it's going to be rough. We'll see what happens tonight. They might come out and school the Rangers. They might. I kind of see it as like a trap type of game. Rangers are coming off 2 back-to-back shutouts where they scored 15 goals.
Wow, yeah.
We are not getting a goal tonight. I'm taking all my Rangers out of my fantasy lineup for tonight because there's no Rangers never put up that many goals in back-to-back games. It's not going to happen. In fact, I think they just made like an NHL record on how many they did put in back-to-back shutouts. I think it's like the first time ever a team put up 15 goals in back-to-back shutouts. So, but I'll tell you, man, the Rangers are playing very well these last few games. And if they could continue that, they remind me of the Colorado team from last year. When you see them play, when they played Nashville, granted, that's not a good measuring stick. But it was very obvious that there was an NHL team out there and half an AHL team out there.
Right.
Because they were just blowing past guys, everything going in the net. And those goals, though, weren't on the defense. The goalie's got to stop something. And even announcers were saying, these goalies are good goalies for Nashville, but they're just letting everything in that day. And so I just feel that I hate to see New Jersey, New York first round. I really would hate it because I think they're both good teams and they're both fun teams to watch. And I don't like that part of this playoff format where these good teams leave, like Toronto and Tampa Bay. They're both good teams. One of them's not playing in the second round. We know that. One of them will not be in the second round.
Yeah, you know what? I get where you're going with that, and I know where we're going to go with this. We're going to go to the 1-16 format, but I just want to say this too, real quick, with New Jersey. Yes, they could end up in first place. I love what they've done this year. You always love a Cinderella story, right? Because going into this season, they were supposed to be the team that, if we made a wild card, that's great. We've accomplished something, right? And now here they are knocking on the door of first place in the Metropolitan Division. However, I'm starting to get a little nervous here about Vitek Vanacek all of a sudden. He's kind of starting to come crashing back to earth. However, with New Jersey, there is a wild card coming, and his name is Luke Hughes. Now, don't forget what Kel McCarr did for the Colorado Avalanche when he came out of Boston U and just lit it up in the playoffs for the Avalanche. Could Hughes do the same thing for the Devils? Maybe. We don't know. But I think the Devils would obviously they want to finish in first place because wouldn't you rather play a wild card team than the Rangers in the first round? Of course you would.
Yeah.
Of course you would.
Listen, I don't want to see it. I don't think the Devils want to see it. I don't think because it's going to be a hard series. It's likely going 7 games. And it's just such a war of attrition the playoffs are that having that series in the first round is almost a guarantee that they're not going anywhere. You know, like how many guys are going to get hurt? How tired can you be and get into the next round? One thing we saw last year with Colorado, they finished up their series, they got rest. You know, that's so crucial in the playoffs.
Sometimes that works against teams, though, because if you finish off your opponent quick, and the next round, your opponent that you're playing in the next round,
you could be rusty.
7, all of a sudden they're in a rhythm, because everybody knows hockey is a game of habit, right? And it's rhythm. Once you get into your rhythm and you're into that groove, right? Sometimes and it's great to get rest, but there's such a thing as getting too much rest.
There is definitely that.
Practice no matter what you do. You just
trust
can't.
me. I'm not concerned at all about the Rangers getting too much rest anywhere. Especially, with Patrick Kane, who's 37 years old. But, I just feel like that's what's going to happen is the Carolina's going to slip. New Jersey goes to the top. They'll end up taking on Florida. Boston will take on the Islanders, likely, unless, the pesky Sens come in there, which Senators, Boston, that should be that would be interesting too.
That one would be.
So I just, I don't want to see. I have no joy in seeing Rangers double series. Let me put it that way. As a Rangers fan, all it does is put knots in my stomach. Like, my father got older. He could not watch playoff hockey. He just wouldn't watch it. He would ask me who won the game, or he'd watch the highlights on the news or whatever. Right. And that would be about it. Like in '94, when the Rangers won the Stanley Cup, my father didn't watch a game. Because he couldn't. We had to watch it upstairs in my own bedroom because my father was like, "I'm too nervous." Like the game hadn't even started. I'm putting on the pregame show. He's like, "Nope, too nervous." Like it literally would kill him if he watched the game. So we got to turn it off for his health. And that's what this series will do to me. I just know it because Jersey is just so good, and guys like Mercer are going off at the right time. Having a 10-game point streak and stuff like that. I just don't know where you go with Jersey. But again, it's a depth issue. They start losing guys.
Yeah,
they don't have it. They don't have depth.
This is what happens. Exactly. So I'll tell you guys, I don't hate the playoff format the way it is. I believe that if you're going to win the Stanley Cup, you got to play good teams no matter what. However, I know we're going to have a little difference of opinion here. So, Mazzotti, I know you were talking about the 1-16 playoff format before we went on. So, tell us, my friend, what does 1-16 look like?
Well, if we had the playoffs today, Boston would be playing Florida, division rival, Florida. Right? The Islanders would play Carolina. Winnipeg would play New Jersey. I think that's an interesting matchup. Seattle would play Toronto. Edmonton plays Vegas. Minnesota would play LA. No, wait, I screwed up somewhere. Minnesota would play the Rangers.
Ooh.
LA plays Colorado.
Wow.
And Tampa plays Dallas.
So you see, here's the thing. Now you got good teams playing each other already anyway.
Yes, but I like the fact that it creates new rivalries. Okay. LA playing the Rangers in the Cup final and then beating us doesn't necessarily create an edge to when they play.
I feel like that is not true, because every time I wear King stuff out and I see a Rangers fan, they still hate me for it.
The fans, yes, but the players, the Ranger players, don't give a shit that the team lost in 2014.
None of them are left.
Guys on the team that were still there. It's Kreider and the trainer. That's it. It's been a while there. That's it. Those are the only guys that remember that, right? So I just feel like the league could shake it up a bit. And this isn't really a shakeup, because this is how they used to do it. You
A long
know?
time ago.
Yeah. And I just think it creates very interesting matchups, and it makes your points matter. That's the other thing. I feel like it makes your regular season matter more because, hey, Seattle's like been having a great year, but all of a sudden they've dropped to 13th out of the top 16th. Well, now they have to take on New Jersey or Toronto, like depending on where things fish out. I just feel like even the old format that they used to have of 1 through 8, I kind of like that better too. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
because here's the thing. If you want to do a 1 through 16, you have to change the way you do the schedule. Because right now, the way it's set up,
yeah,
Western Conference teams are only playing Eastern Conference teams twice a year, right? Vice versa. So if you're going to make that much, if you're going to put that much weight in a 1 through 16, you got to make it so that the conferences are playing each other more and less emphasis on divisions. Yeah.
So with that, I mean, I don't foresee it ever happening because owners don't want to fork over the money. But realistically, what's the point of a Boston Los Angeles rivalry? I'm never, besides you, Scott, I'm never going to see another Kings fan in my life.
Probably not.
But they're all in LA. Or like, what's the point of a New York Rangers versus Arizona Coyotes rivalry when there's 4 Coyotes fans? I think that they should go back to the 1 through 8 because there's a more realistic chance I can travel to Ottawa, or there's a more realistic chance I go see an Islanders game. Islanders aren't in my division, but I hate them, and I would hate them more if I had to see them in the playoffs every year.
I don't know, Ed. I hear right now it's really great to go see a home game in Arizona. You may want to rethink that.
They're all college kids getting tickets for $20.
Apparently, there's only 22 rows in the whole arena. So even if you get the worst seat in the arena, you're only 22 rows back from the ring.
Honestly, and I feel like instead of playing them in a college arena, they should have just went to why didn't they just go to their AHL arena that holds more people?
Well, it's in Tucson. It's about 2 hours away.
Yeah, but it's still in Arizona. They're the Arizona Coyotes. It's
true. That much is very true. And I guess. But then what are you going to do about the Roadrunners? You can't have them both there.
Why? The Barracuda.
Yeah, but we're talking about, market size. I don't know. Besides, I don't even, honestly, they should have just moved them right out of Arizona to begin with and be done with it.
That's Batman's
I'm sure people in Quebec
they're not going to.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
That's another story for another time.
One happen. It is an absolute travesty.
The thing about the playoff format that I don't like right now is because that wild card. I kind of don't like the wild card.
I hate it. I agree with you.
They wanted to go back to like making rivalries in the division, but that was when 1 played 4 and 2 played 3. But now 1 doesn't play 4. 1 plays whatever the wild card is, which might not be your division anyway. So I feel like it was like a half. It was like, well, we'll take this part of the 1 through 8 and we'll take this part of the 1 through 4 and we'll mash them together and everybody will love it. But what happens every year is Tampa plays Toronto and Maple Leaf fans want to blow their brains out.
On top of that, whoever drew these maps up.
Happening. And is it on Toronto? You got to beat Tampa? Sure. But at the same time, do you want to see the same team every year in the playoffs? I don't.
I know. But also, who drew these maps up for the divisions? Because the Atlantic Division is a big circle in the Northeast, and then a big circle in the Southeast, and then there's the middle that's the Metropolitan.
All about Metropolitan Columbus, don't you?
Yeah, Metropolitan Columbus, so close to New York. It makes if they got to restructure, if they want to keep this wild card thing successful, restructure the divisions. New York, Boston has to be in the Metropolitan.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
The way the league is laid out, though, you have a cluster where there's a whole bunch of teams, and then they're spread out for the rest of them. So you no matter what you do, there's going to be that screwy line. Because remember how for years Detroit was in the Western Conference, right? Even though really they're in East, they're in Michigan, but because of the way the map was drawn, what are you going to do? I mean, so there's several different ways to look at it. Now, I grew up in the 80s, falling in love with the game in the 80s. And back then they went with 1 through 4 right across the board. I didn't mind that. Of course, back then there was only 21 teams. You got to remember that. Now you got 32. So is there, and here's the thing, guys, no matter what you do, you're not going to make somebody happy. Somebody is always going to complain.
Yeah, somebody's always going to be upset.
I kind of like the way this is set up right now because the reason they did that with the 2 wild cards in the top 3, because people were going crazy about, well, with the 1 through 4, you say have a crap team in the Pacific gets in because they're the 4 seed, whereas you have teams in the Central that would have been 4th, 5th, and 6th place, but they have more points, but they're out because they couldn't get to that 4th spot, but that 4th place team in the Pacific Division's in with, like, say, 15 less points, right? So that's why they did the wild card the way they did.
That was aggravating, by the way.
Exactly, right? So
I wasn't around for that, so
I don't mind the way it's set up right now. I don't mind a 1 through 8 for the conferences. I don't like the 1 through 16 because I just think it's kind of ridiculous to have a first round playoff series, say LA versus Florida. Right? I mean, that's just kind of, yeah, great. This is playoff hockey, but who are these guys? Right? I mean, that's kind of one of those deals. I think that
well, Scott, here's the other thing though you're not thinking of, okay? Right now, the Stanley Cup final is like that. Right? If it's an LA Florida Stanley Cup final, who's tuning in? Like
but at least you have to draw
I feel if you go 1 through 16, maybe it's New Jersey versus the Rangers for the cup. That changes that a lot, you know, like
I still think you have to have some kind of emphasis on the conferences. I still believe that. And again, if they wanted to go back to the 1 through 8 for the conferences, whatever. Do what you got to do.
But if they did 1 through 12 with 4 wild cards?
Well, they might have to, because if you heard Bettman last week saying, we was talking about expansion. He said, well, Quebec City and what was it, Houston and Atlanta have talked to us about
Atlanta.
Well, we're not doing anything right now. So, in other words, yes, in 2 to 3 years, we're going to take their, $750 million expansion fee and give them teams and further dilute the league down, is basically what he's trying to say.
If Atlanta gets another team, I'm going to be so upset. I'm also going to be first in line for their jersey because they'll be gone in a year, but I'll be upset.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, I don't know why they're like doing this. Like, oh, we're gonna go to Atlanta, we're gonna go to Kansas City. Like, these teams had franchises and lost them. Like, why are we coming back?
Houston, I get. Houston, I kind of get. Texas is such a huge market. Texas is such a huge market that's kind of like the Wild West. They only have Dallas. Quebec City, the only reason why they lost their team is for politics. Sure. Give them teams. Atlanta, you failed twice. One of them recently. Kansas City, you already failed there. Cleveland, you already failed there. Either open up new markets or you're done. You can only expand so far.
Kansas City doesn't even have an AHL team.
No, exactly. They have the Mavericks in the ECHL.
Right.
That's it. So you can make that jump from like ECHL to AHL, like the Colorado Eagles. Yes, you cannot go from ECHL to NHL. The market's not big enough. They don't sell out games as it is in a 10,000 seat arena. You think they're all of a sudden going to sell out 20,000? It's not even the
market necessarily; it's the interest from that market. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Obviously, Kansas City has plenty of people to go to a game. That's not their sport. They want to go watch the Chiefs. You know?
Yeah. Do you think they're going to sell out a Sunday night game when the Chiefs are playing, or do you think they're going to sell out a Wednesday night game when the Royals are playing? Absolutely not. They are a baseball and football market. And let's face it, if you're already a hockey fan in Kansas City, you're probably a Blues fan.
Yeah, that's a good point. Or a Blackhawks fan.
Yeah, or a Blackhawks fan.
Or a Colorado Avalanche fan.
If you really want to look into it,
in the middle of all that.
If you really want to open up a new market in that area, you have to look at Oklahoma City. That's the only thing.
They go to Houston.
Yeah, they don't have anything.
Yeah,
they have no ice. So realistically, and the only reason why I could see that being successful is because they're going to be opposite of the Thunder. They'll take second fiddle, and if the Thunder are playing in Milwaukee, there you go. Then you have ice, and the people are going to flood to it because there's nothing else to do in Oklahoma City.
All right, so that's a very good point. Ed, there's one more bit of news that I know you are just chomping at the bit to discuss.
Oh, my God.
We're going to have a New Jersey manufacturer.
Oh, my God. This was the biggest I can't swear anymore, damn it. This was the biggest mess up I've ever seen the NHL do. Honestly.
Wow, that's the top of a long list of accomplishments right there.
It is. 2 Atlanta teams we just mentioned, the flubbed expansions of this league. What's a sports league without its fans though?
Right.
You know, and in order to at the MLS, you have professional lacrosse. So a sports league without its fans, you got to make the fans happy. And Fanatics has gotten the new NHL contract for on ice jersey manufacturers, and they've been just an absolute just mess up after mess up company, and you reward them for absolutely just degrading your league. I don't get it. I just don't get it. If you guys have opinions, let me know. But I understand Adidas doesn't want to do it anymore, and we have companies like CCM and Bauer who could competently do it.
I hear you. I really don't care either way, as long as Reebok doesn't get it back and put those ridiculous piping down the sides of the jerseys. That drove me crazy. I couldn't stand that.
Well, I mean, if Adidas doesn't want to do it anymore, Reebok certainly wouldn't have gotten it. But you have the AHL jerseys made by CCM, and they are fantastic.
Yeah, they are.
They are absolutely fantastic. And I see no reason why they shouldn't have been awarded it. They're already on every player's gear. You can't look on the ice without seeing CCM on something. Give them the contract.
Well, remember, this isn't like a thing where they're like, hey, we like CCM, so we'll give it to them. They're in the business of making money. So Fanatics threw the biggest check at them, and they said yes. Like,
I want to see the numbers. I really do. Because if it's not far off, then they should win with the quality. If it was far off, I understand. If it was like a few, I don't know what's reasonable, 10 million, 15 million off, then yeah, I understand. But if it was like a million,
the difference in why the CCM makes the AHL and not the NHL, that they don't want to.
They do all the major juniors. They do a bunch of NCAA teams. I mean,
right, exactly. So they're not going to lose money on an NHL contract that they don't sell that much for anyway. They figure,
I feel like they would sell more with CCM on the back than seeing a Fanatics logo on the back.
Now, granted, I am probably the cause of this whole thing, so I'm sorry, Ed, because as you can see behind me here, I give Fanatics a lot of my money. So
yeah, you're the root cause.
I'm probably the root of the problem because I'm not just like, I won't just buy a Rangers gear. Underneath those shirts, I have a Calgary Flames shirt, an Ottawa Senators shirt, multiple Kraken jerseys. I have a Tampa Bay Championship shirt. I got a Montreal Conference Championship shirt, 75. Because I go on Fanatics all the time. They're like, daily deal, $13 T-shirt. I'm like, hell yes, I'll buy a T-shirt. So I'm the guy going through the clearance items.
Remember those old commercials, Hair Club for Men? You sound just like that guy. I'm not just the president. I'm also a client.
Yeah. And granted, not all the stuff. You're right, Ed. Not all the stuff has been great. Some of it's been, wear it once and then it falls apart. Some of it, you wash it, it comes out 4 sizes smaller than when it went in. So there are issues, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, this is a Fanatics breakaway jersey right here. I was quite happy with it. But I haven't bought in one of the official jerseys. They're another $150 higher than this one, so
Yeah,
save the money there. But
they're definitely not easy on the wallet.
no,
It's,
I don't
with
really
the
think that the
inconsistencies.
number on the arm is worth $150. Like,
Right.
that's fine. You could have it iron on. I don't care. Like,
Well, it's also the material that it's made with. The Adidas stuff's a little bit thicker, moisture wicking. It's better quality, and I'm sure Fanatics will adapt to that, and they will, get the templates right. But you can't. It's the customer service.
I could say this for sure, that this Kraken jersey I'm wearing, that is a breakaway jersey, the material on it is very nice. It's literally like that wicking away type of material.
I think Fanatics
would
is a
be proud.
great second plan for the fan who doesn't want to spend $300 on a jersey. I get that, but on the ice, I don't know. I'm not
see
a
how
big
they
fan
do.
of the.
We'll see how
We'll
they
see. But they gave him 13 years.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ed, I'm going to blow your mind because I'm going to see if I can get Fanatics to sponsor us. So,
Hey, if they do, if they want to, that's fine. I doubt it. They'll probably mail you a check for 87 cents and say, "Oh, your other check got lost in the mail." But
It might count if you just have me on again, because
yeah, there's the Fanatics billboard Mazzani over here. Oh, man. All right, fellas. Well, what do you say we close this show out with a little history lesson? How's that sound?
sounds good. That
All
sounds
right.
good to me.
All right, let's take a ride on that Zamboni Time Machine. The Zamboni name, by the way, is used with permission. So this week, the Zamboni Time Machine takes us back to October 3rd, 1953, the day the Montreal Canadiens bought an entire hockey league to get one player. In the original Six era, acquiring young talent was a very territorial process. There was no amateur entry draft yet, so team scouts were constantly on the prowl with contracts in hand, hoping to pluck their team's next superstar. For example, the Chicago Blackhawks paid Bobby Hull's parents for his signing rights when Bobby was just 11 years old. Imagine that. The Montreal Canadiens considered the province of Quebec their own. In the early 1950s, there was a player on the Quebec Aces in the amateur Quebec Senior League that the Canadiens desperately wanted. That player was Jean Beliveau. The Canadiens actually held Belliveau's NHL negotiating rights, but he refused to sign with the team. Even though he was playing in an amateur league, Beliveau was being paid quite handsomely by the Aces. Some even said he was making more than Gordie Howe and Rocket Richard. With this arrangement in place, the Gros Bill, as he was known, was quite content to stay in his hometown of Quebec City. The Canadiens, however, would not be denied. Undaunted, they purchased the entire Quebec Senior League and declared it a professional league. By the rules of the day, this meant that Beliveau would play for Montreal and Montreal only. Don't feel bad, though. Beliveau did not make out too badly in this deal. He became the face of the Canadiens franchise and won 10 Stanley Cups with the team on his way to a Hall of Fame career. He is widely considered to be one of the best hockey players that ever lived, and that, my friends, concludes this week's trip on the Zamboni Time Machine. God, I used to love how they used to do things back then. It's so cutthroat.
You could do that for like
the league.
You could do that same history lesson for like 40 years of the league.
I know.
And Montreal has the that's why it's ridiculous when they complain about not getting Crosby. It's like, are you kidding me? Like,
No.
How many banners do you guys have to steal up there? Like, because remember when the Rangers had Lafreniere as the first overall pick? We got a history lesson on when the last time the Rangers had a first overall pick. And it was like back in the 50s or something. And they didn't even get to keep the guy because he was French, so Montreal automatically got him.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
it's like no wonder they were winning the cup every year back in the original era.
It's a joke. Burn half those banners in Montreal. They're all a joke.
Well, I guess we
You
just
could say that about
that's
yeah. You could
This
you
doesn't
could
air
you could
there,
say
right?
that about the Yankees too. I guess.
Well, guys, this was a lot of fun. This was so much fun having us all back together again, talking some puck. And I'll tell you what, we got to do this again next week.
Yeah,
Anytime, man.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. So I want to thank everybody for listening, checking us out. And, by the way, find us on Apple Podcasts, find us on Spotify, and by all means, follow us, because the more you follow, the more we can grow the show. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next week on Marty's Illegal Stick.
Later.